Hi everyone, this is Vidhi again from Canada Mentors. And today, guess what? I have Temi with me, who is a software developer right here in Canada. Hi Temi, so nice to have you today with me.
Thanks for having me, Vidhi. It's good to see you again.
Yes, so excited. Well, Temi, for all the viewers here, could you please give us an introduction of yourself, your background, anything that you want to share about the work you do, the countries you moved?
Yeah, of course. Everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Temi. I've been living in Canada for 7 years, I believe, since 2015. I moved from Nigeria at the time, and I moved as a data analyst, came to Canada, and then switched my career from data analysis to software engineer. And this happened maybe like 3 years after I landed in Canada. So I've been a software engineer for 4 years now. And currently I work at Future Fit. And Future Fit, what we do is really interesting. I like what we do. We help people who want to switch careers, transition careers, or even if you want to start a new career, we help, using our app. We roll out a bunch of features that would help to, place you in the right career, give you learning opportunities, like suggestions on skills that you need to build upon. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So I build like exciting products like that.
That is so amazing, Tammy. Well, that's so interesting. You were in data and analysis previously, and then, you were in Canada still as a data analyst, and then you switched careers. You got into something which we usually see is very male dominated as well. Yeah. So what inspired you to change careers, switch from one field to another?
Yeah, I'm inspired. I would say, first of all, I'm not too new. So because I was a data analyst, I wasn't exactly too, new into that, like that technology, use of technology space. I was exposed to writing SQL scripts, using Excel, doing some Excel programming to pivot tables and stuff like that. And after a while, I think it just became a bit more repetitive for me. And I was looking for something more exciting, something more challenging. And I considered being a data engineer, but I was just like, maybe something a bit more, outside of data. And I started doing some research and realized, there's something called front end engineering or back end engineering. I was like, okay. And then we get to build all these apps that we actually use. Okay, let me just try it out. So that's kind of what started the whole thing. And at the time too, I was looking for something that would be also super flexible because when I did the switch, I was actually pregnant and then I had my kid during that maternity leave. So during that period, I felt it was a good opportunity for me to actually explore something else, right? So I had that time to plan it and to like get into software engineering in general, tested out a bunch of courses and that's how I did the switch. Super easy like that, Noel.
Well, you make it sound very easy, but it's definitely not easy.
No, it's not as easy as it sounds. But honestly, for me, it was just me looking for something new. I generally like to learn, and learning for me, I learn things every single day. Like even as a data engineer, I was taking courses with EDX, Coursera, and all of that, trying to improve my skills. And I was just like, okay, there's not too much outside of this for me to learn in data. Let me branch out and really get into tech, and that's what kicked it off.
Wow. And also you mentioned you were pregnant when you were in transition, when you were moving from one role to another. That you do make it sound very easy.
No, it's not. Like I think for me it was just determination and just looking for something that I potentially would give me the opportunity to be able to learn as much as I want to. Like if you consider like the technology space, there's so many aspects of technology, and software engineering can be a start for you, but for someone else, maybe DevOps would be a start. right? And for someone else, even data engineering could be a start, right? Or product management. Like there's so many parts to engineering that I felt, okay, you know what? I won't be in the wrong place if I just started with being a software engineer. So yeah.
Yep. And in Canada, we have a dearth of, software engineers, good software engineers. And being in a role like that, I'm sure there is so much more life has to offer.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So tell me, how did that first breakthrough happen?
This is the hardest, I think, for me. Give you like a little bit of background. Getting into that software engineering did take a lot of work, right? So I joined a boot camp, did that boot camp for 6 months while I was on maternity leave. Not a very easy task to do. But the thing is, I just put my mind to it, right? And I just did as much as I could every day that passed by. So graduating from it, and starting to look for roles, it took time, right? So, in fact, while the whole process, towards the end of it, when I finished my last project, what we call them then, they were like mentors, but they try to help you get a job in the market. Because I did a boot camp. They try to like help you with your resume, help you with looking at your LinkedIn profile, packaging it well, making sure you're using the right, words. And, there are a lot of like things that really go into that, getting your first role. Right. And I would say for me, I did a lot of practice. Like I learned how to pitch myself to engineers, to recruiters, to hiring managers, that like different pool of different people. And it was, I just practicing in front of the mirror. Hi, my name's Temi. I used to be a data analyst and now I'm a software engineer. I learned React, I learned that, I just like break down all of the things that I learned. And I try to say in a very like enthusiastic, exciting way so people will listen, it was a lot of practice. And then I attended a bunch of recruiting events, planning, of course, like going into those recruiting events, I would think it would be nice if I got a job out of this. But when I didn't get a job, when I didn't get anybody interested, I would have, learned something though, right? I would have met, other engineers. I would have met like recruiters there. Some people will give you tips. Some people, you take their card from them, and you email them afterwards. Then aside from that, I was also volunteering. So you stay on top of your learning, right? Because there's that period when you're looking for a job and you're not in that boot camp anymore. So you need to keep doing the projects, right? You need to keep coding so you don't forget what you've learned, right? So I just kept doing that. And then what else did I do? so many things. Like I volunteered at a startup. I had people around me that were trying to build their own projects, like do their own business. I would volunteer to write code for them free of charge. And the first time, a few times, I actually did go through interviews, and there were a few of them that I met. It was actually through networking in one of those events I attended. I met the lady and she was like, oh, she's not even an engineer, or she knew their company was looking for an engineer. So she's like, oh, I think my boss will really like you. And then she suggested I join. I came to talk to her boss. And while talking to her boss, it's like, okay, put you up for do a technical interview. And then I passed that first stage and I was like, oh my God, did I pass my interview? And then the rest is asking me questions about what I've built, what I've done. And of course, there's going to be periods in there where you struggle, right? Where you get a lot of rejections, right? Like I got so many rejections, and it was always mostly about, oh, we're looking for somebody more senior, which is understandable, right? So I was just honestly just kept trying and waiting for that, time when it will work for me, when it will click for me. And it did click in my current, it's funny because I was currently working at Manulife at the time. And the company used to talk about how you can switch if you build new skills. You can switch from this role to another role. Like we're open to, moving you around, so you can test out different parts of the company. So I spoke to my manager at the time, and then she introduced me to another hiring manager. And then that's how they interviewed me and I got the job. But that took 6 months.
So this was within Manulife that you moved from one role to another role?
Yes, this was in Manulife. And I would say this again, you have to explore your internal, like where you are at the time. It's very important. Make sure you try out there too. Like, don't limit yourself to say, okay, I want to just, get out there and do it. Explore everything around you, right? Network with people, even people that are not engineers. You honestly just never know, right? But you have to be out there. You have to constantly keep doing it. And learning, right? You go for your first interview, they tell you no, you take something back from that interview and you say, okay, this is the thing I need to improve on. Sometimes you don't get feedback, which is okay, but you Google. You say, how do I get better, right? You practice a lot of lead code. There's so many things. I think we'll get into that later on but I don't want to ramp too much.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that my takeaways for me are just putting yourself out there and be fearless about it. If you have a networking event or a conference happening, or you're just meeting people who are you're not sure if they are in the same domain or not as you, but then you never know who knows who. Yeah. And then just being out there. You said you volunteered. That is so cool. And then you took a boot camp. You met mentors there.
That's right.
There is always help that you can get, and if you are determined and if you are sure that you will, that time will come and when things will click for you, and then it happens.
Yeah.
But it does take hard work. It does take all that faith and determination. Without it, I mean, people say, oh, that person got really lucky, but then no one knows what all went into being lucky.
It's never just luck. It's a lot of effort, a lot of learning, a lot of being intentional, also, right? Just explore everything around you. Ask questions, and also be yourself, right?
No, this is amazing, Tammy. And then after Manulife, you went on to working for a unicorn company that's so popular in Canada. I'll let you talk more about them. How did that happen? And how did you really prepare for the interviews there? Because I suspect, moving within Manulife from one role to another versus interviewing for a new role altogether at a new company where you don't know the people, you don't know what the interview process would entail really. So how did you go about that?
Oh yeah, getting that apply board. So the Unicorn startup is apply board, and getting that role, that job as a software engineer actually was the first validation that I really got, like that I could do this, right? Because the work I was in at Manulife, I was a junior engineer. I was doing okay. I was learning new things. I was, doing well. Honestly, it wasn't terrible. But leaving that company and going to a new company, it was a lot of work too. I know the first time the recruiter, you, Vidi, reached out to me, I was telling my husband, I don't know, like, do you think I should start doing this again? And guess what, guys? It was during my maternity leave with my second son. So I was 6 months into the maternity leave. I was like, okay, should I be learning something new? Should I go to Udemy and find new courses just to get better? Remember, I said you have to keep getting better. And then when you reached out to me, at the time too, I was even looking at joining like other companies like Amazon or like Microsoft. I was doing interviews with them actually at the time. And I had gone past like 2-3 interviews, but I wasn't really making progress past like the third phase. So I went and brought out like this book called Cracking the Coding Interview. I brought it out because there was a lot of talk about it online. Then I was doing a lot of studying with, courses. So the thing is, when you switch careers from maybe anything else, if you were not in computer science before and you're switching to something in tech, like something like software engineering, when you be writing code, you need to gain some like foundational, like you need that foundation, right? So books like Cracking the Coding Interview helped. Things like going on EDX or Udemy to learn about data structures helped, because that was like core. Then the few other things I did, which honestly, like it's undermining, like people don't know how powerful this tool is I used tools like Prompt.io for practicing mock interviews. So you actually go on there and someone will interview you like a technical interview. Someone will technically write code. You do the whole coding in front of somebody, explaining your code, breaking it down. I use Prompt. I use Interview.io, like all of these tools just to like get that job at Applyboard.
Yeah.
And I also put up my hand to interview other people. So I went the other way, right? So I put myself in the position of the interviewer, like the technical, because the thing about technical interviews is I get very nervous when I'm in front of somebody actually writing code, because I'm thinking, oh, they're fact checking me. They're making sure like I'm getting each function right. Like engineers will know what I mean. But actually flipping that the other way, I realized that I'm also nervous because I have to evaluate how this person is doing. So if they're able to communicate very well to me, then it makes my job easier. So I'm like, okay, that means I need to improve my communication. So when I'm writing code, I'm explaining first, maybe break down all the things I need to do. And I also realized you don't actually need to get everything right in a technical interview for it to be perfect. But you need to be able to explain and also listen to the person suggesting that, oh, here's how you can make this better. So it's like pair programming in real life, but with people who want to hire you, who want to pay you money. So yeah, that was like, for me, that was super practical and that helped me. So when I did go through like the interview process at Applyboard, it was almost exactly as I practiced.
Wow.
It was almost exactly as the mock interviews, right? So yeah, a lot of studying, and a lot of practicing. Very helpful.
Wow. That is such a good strategy and it worked for you. So you put yourself in the other person's shoe.
Yeah.
So you can, I've heard people taking mock interviews, being an interviewee and going through that scenario where, you are writing a code, you're answering system design questions and you're doing code pairing and all of that. But being an interviewer and seeing how you want that interviewee to respond to your questions, take those cues.
Yep.
It's so important and people don't talk much about it.
No, people don't talk much about it. And I mean, I decided to talk about it because I felt like sometimes it's good for people to hear like everything about what's going on. Like the more practical it gets, the better, right? So, I mean, when I also did it, I can't remember. I think I just got an email saying, "Do you want to be an interviewer?" And I was like, "This sounds ridiculous. Like, how can I interview people when I don't know what I'm talking about?" But truth of the matter is, you actually get materials, like you get everything. So I'm like, oh, so I get all the materials ready and I know what they're going to type. Like I know the solution. Interesting. Okay, I'm open to trying it out.
Yeah, and then you end up learning so much. You just end up learning the mindset of the interviewer. Like, how is this person thinking? Or what, when they say ABC, what do I say in response?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get feedback from clients. They say, well, we gave this person this question and they didn't ask us the right questions. They didn't ask us something and they simply started to code, which is the wrong way to go about it. You have to first dig deeper into the problem, and then start thinking about the solution.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right. And the thing is, like, even in some of those technical interviews that I felt like it went smoothly and I didn't have like a lot of issues in there, I didn't get called back. The ones where I got called back was really like the ones where maybe I got stuck right in the middle of executing something, and the person says, "Oh, can you can make this a closure? You can, how about you write it this way?" And I said, "Oh, that makes sense." Like taking feedback. It's like them saying, "Oh, you can work well with the team," right? It's beyond just, "Oh, you're such a great developer. You can write the best code." I mean, maybe in the past, or maybe there are companies who care, for those type A, like type of engineers. But I think a lot of companies these days don't want like engineers who are just like one way focused. They want engineers who are able to like expand their thinking, and take feedback and, give feedback. So I think that was like key for me too, like in my learning process with these things is, yeah, being able to like assimilate feedback in the moment, and not just being so headstrong about what you know and how best to do it, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a software developer, especially I feel in the small to mid-sized companies, right, where there are limited number of people on the team, and even in your current company, I would think that if it's probably under 50 people, so it is so important to work closely with the product team. Get like information from the co-founders or the CTO, and then pass it on to the development team. So being very clear in your communication, being that person who's proactive and ready to do the extra work and not just think about the code. Like, there are
Exactly.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when you mentioned that, not just thinking about the core, when I now actually got into applied job into applied board, when I now finally got into applied board doing the job, I realized that it wasn't just a software engineering job, right? Like there were times I did designs in Figma. Like
Yeah.
I did the job of a UX designer. There were times I would create my own user stories in Jira or, wherever we did it at the time. And I think being able to do that outside of just writing code
Yeah.
was important for them. Like those were some of the things they were looking at because they place you in a team, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they place you in a team and maybe that team doesn't have all the resources that they need at the time, right? So they didn't have like a designer for our team. They had an outside designer, but they didn't have like a designer for our team. So we were like pretty much everybody was doing as much as they could just to get the product and to just, be successful at, putting things like releasing products and releasing features. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Being flexible, right? Being flexible
Being
and being
flexible.
okay with doing something else as well. And
Yes.
that helps you become a better developer, so to say.
Yeah. Very important. And I also want to say something like even when I was being the interviewer, I learned even coding then because you get the solution right before the interviewee. And I think there was one time I got like this guy that was super intelligent and he did things differently from the way the solution was, which was interesting. Like for me, I learned something. You feel me? Like I learned something new while interviewing somebody. So
Right.
there's so many aspects to this thing. It's beyond explanation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that the bottom line is try different things. Be fearless about it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
The worst that can go wrong is, you probably will fumble a little,
Exactly.
but nothing crazier than that.
No, like there's nothing, you don't fail at mock interviews. You don't fail at them. You fail at maybe getting past through that one, but you learn to get better so you don't fail on the main thing, right? And even if you don't get through this full stages when you do get like an actual job interview with an actual company, that's also there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
You just have
that's
to stay,
absolutely true.
yeah, you have to stay hopeful.
Yeah,
Never give up, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I also hear people saying, well, I have started interviewing and I am interviewing with companies that are not my priority. So that's like a mock interview for them. So,
Exactly.
I'll test the waters there. I'll see how I am reacting, how I am, being in those technical interviews, team fit interviews. So that's mock for them.
Oh, definitely.
And then they are preparing themselves for the interview, right? The company they're
Exactly.
connect with.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That one I remember too, like at the very beginning of breaking into like my first job as a software engineer, I interviewed with companies that were not in my so there was one where I was just going to be maybe managing their Shopify website. I was just like, this is not what I want. But
Yeah,
you know what? Nothing is too small for you to learn from, right? So I was just like taking everything. It's like, whatever, bring it on.
exactly. That's the right attitude to that, right? Wow, that's super cool. Awesome. Amazing.